Good morning and welcome to your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and this podcast has been bringing you conversations with authors, entrepreneurs, mentors, and business leaders for 18 years. We turn 18 in January of this coming year, about 3 weeks from now, and we are honored to be ranked in the top 1.5% of podcasts worldwide. And today we're talking about the hardest questions that many business owners will ever face. Is it time to keep building or is it time to let go? Cynthia Kay's upcoming book, Should You Stay or Should You Go, which, by the way, is already a 2025 American Fest Awards finalist, dives into the emotional side of that decision long before the lawyers and the bankers show up. And today we are sponsored by Your Partner in Success Radio. Me. That would be me. Your Partner in Success Radio brings conversations with entrepreneurs and leaders and authors. I love talking with authors on building sustainable businesses. So tune in each week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for practical insights on growth, leadership, and real-world decisions that you can apply today. Now, this is a very important conversation with Cynthia Kay. She is also known as CK. And she's going to dig into the why should I stay or should I go question and why it is so emotionally loaded for business owners. And this is important. What hole Cynthia saw in the usual spreadsheet-driven exit planning advice that actually pushed her to write this book. Good morning, CK. It's so good to have you back on the show. Listen, the last time you're here in May 2024, that's too long ago. We dove, we dove into your other fantastic book, Small Business, Big Success. And that book has a permanent spot in my entrepreneurial library, but that's not the story here. You have been really busy since then, and I'm really happy to have you back to share your journey.
Well, Denise, first of all, I am so delighted because I know your audience is one that really values content. And so I'm just so delighted to be able to speak to them. I am going to make one little tiny correction.
It was 2026, wasn't it?
Well, no, it was actually 2024, but
Oh,
actually the American Book Fest Award was for the book that we talked about, which is Small Business, Big Success. But it is kind of the launch pad for this book that I have just written, which will be released in January. And honestly, it kind of teases this idea of what is it like to be successful at stepping out? And really the question of should you stay or should you go? And you hit the nail on the head when you said this is probably one of the most difficult decisions that business owners have to make. And, and that is kind of evidenced by the fact that about 83% of owners of privately held businesses have no written transition plan. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine building and growing an amazing business and then not caring for how it's going to move forward when, as we all know, at some point we will not be around?
right.
And I think, and I really did take a different tact with this book. And part of the reason is that I didn't really know it was going to be a book. It was really my journaling of my journey when I first started to think about, should I exit the business? And, many business owners don't think about it, but I think I did because I saw so many people around me struggling. And quite frankly, when you get to be of a certain age, I won't say what that age is, but when you get to be of a certain age, people start asking you, when are you going to retire? And I started to get annoyed. I had my friends around me were all retiring and moving to Florida and, doing things. And I was happy. I loved what I was doing. I didn't want to think about it, but I kind of forced myself to because as the years went by, I started to see signs. And so I would start making lists. I love to make lists. I think all business owners do. And, why should I stay? Why should I go? And every so often I'd go back and revisit it. And that actually became the foundation of this book. Because as I talk to business owners, they were struggling with the same thing I was. And, we get hit on by brokers and M&A people. And, I can't tell you the number of emails I have gotten from people. Have you thought about selling your business? And all of those people take a very transactional approach to it. And when you have grown a business, it's not a transaction.
No, that's your baby.
It's a lifelong passion.
Right.
It is your baby. And so this is not a guide for, how to go, get your business ready and how to write the materials that are needed and how to find a broker. That's not what this is about. This book really is about emotional readiness. And that's a term that when I say that to people, they say, but as business owners, we've been taught to take the emotion out of things. We're supposed to be focused on the business. We're supposed to be rational. And I say this is the one time perhaps in your business life when you really need to let that emotion come through and balance the emotion and the rational thinking so that you get a good decision.
Well, that makes sense. And, I've looked at the galley. You sent that to me. I think you said it was the final draft. And thank you. It's a great book. Everything you write, as far as I'm concerned, is great. And as you know, oh, my pleasure. I wouldn't lie to you. I promise I wouldn't. I read everything. I'm a reader. I'm not a TV watcher. I'm a reader. And I'll read the back of a cereal box if that's the only thing in front of my face. And I don't eat cereal, so that's a little tricky. But I'm looking around this room. I've got 3 bookcases that are overflowing with books. I call this my entrepreneurial library or the command center, depending on my mood. And I have read every single book in here, some of them multiple times, because they really are important. They're important information for what I need to know. Yours is one of those books that's on the second shelf of the bookcase that's right next to my desk, where I can grab it. I don't have to go hunt for it. It's there because I know I'm going to dive into it multiple times.
Oh, you have made my day. You
It's a
truly
good
have.
book. It really is. And, and I will not mark up a book. My, childhood librarian would rear up out of her grave and get me. So I have sticky notes all over it. But, once you start reading these books when you need them, even the sticky notes don't get in your way because it will. And I promise you this happens to me all the time. I'll pick the book up and it's going to fall open to the page that I need. It's magic.
Oh, wow. Well, and I think that's one of the things that I really believe about this latest effort. And I mean, I really struggled with it because I wanted it to be real. I wanted people to understand some of the experimentation that I went through in order to make a decision. I mean, it's hard work. And quite honestly, it takes some soul searching. And I had a number of stops and starts along the way as I started to think about an exit. And, at one point I thought I knew what I wanted and I had to pull back and I had to reassess where I was. And I want business owners to know that this is not unusual, but there are some very definite signs. And when you start to see, and I call them the 7 signs you should stay and the 7 signs you should go. And when you start to see the scales tipping one way or the other, that's when it makes that decision so much easier because it gives you peace.
And you have to talk yourself into it.
You do.
I mean, didn't you told me that you just sold part of your business recently, just a
Yes.
few weeks ago, I think. Let's talk about that.
So I owned a media production and communications company for 39 years. I have truly beaten the odds because there's not a lot of businesses that last. Well, we know the stats on the first 5 years, but the percentages, get even less and less as you go up the ladder. But about 6 weeks ago, I sold the media production part of my business. What I had done was, and partially because of this book, I had carefully looked at I did not want to retire in the traditional sense. So there was a piece of the business that really only I did. The writing, the speaking, the communications training, the presentation training, the working on those pieces. Then there was the media production side of it. And frankly, I had gotten the team to the point where they are so competent and they are so good at what they do. CK and Co Media Production, I mean, it's a gem of a small business. It truly is, with people who really care. And so that piece of it I sold, but I retained the communications consulting. And for years I had line itemed the two businesses, so we knew what they were. They were under one umbrella. But I took that business, and Cynthia Kay Biz is really, it's my passion. It is. It's writing. It's working with small business owners. It's going out and presenting. I have found a way to maintain my work life, but also have some more balance, I hope. I'll let you know in 6 months, in my personal life.
Yeah, you're
And
coming back. We talked about that in the
we're
virtual
going to.
green room.
I'm coming back.
Yep, in May, I think.
Yeah. But I think, as I look at this, I think there are some things that jump out at business owners. And I think for me, when I started to see some of the signs that I knew it was time for me to go. I mean, I can give you a couple of them. One of the signs was that I just I really felt like my passion had changed. I was still passionate, but not about some things. There were projects that I really didn't want to do anymore. To me, they were same old, same old. I loved loved my customers. I enjoyed them, but there was some work that I just didn't love. I felt like, I was starting to become somewhat impatient.
Uh-oh.
And
Been there, done that.
yeah, I call it your thick skin is getting thinner. It's one of my signs. And I would start to see that I didn't have what I felt was the ability to be as patient with people as I needed to be. Because to me, it was obvious. And so what that meant was I needed to move on and do bigger and better and other things. So that to me was a big sign. Now, some of the other signs that you should go were not part of my sign. So one of my signs is technology is not your friend. Well, technology is my friend. I love technology. So that wasn't part of my sign to go. But I do think that, some of the things with work trends. For the first time, we've got 5 generations working in the workplace side by side. And I'm going to tell you that becomes difficult, because what you are comfortable with and the way that you like working is not the way that some people like to work.
And communication. I
Yeah.
think there's a big communication issue between all of these generations. We don't talk the same.
Well, and honestly, that's part of my new business, Cynthia Kay Biz. I am working with companies now to help them understand how to break down those communication barriers, because it's real. And this is not to say that one generation or the other has it all right. There are things we can learn from every generation about how to better communicate, and really the strength. I was very proud of the fact that I had 20-somethings working in my office, and I was of a much larger generation. I'm a baby boomer. So when you look at that, there's a big difference there.
There is. And I've heard this a lot over the many years of this podcast. It seems to be a recurring theme. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. And for the life of me, I can't understand why people can't just, and I'm just going to say it, shut up and listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I will say I have a number of clients that I am working with at Cynthia Kay Biz who actually do understand. I would agree with you, they might be in the minority, but I think the scales are tipping. I really do, because we are paying more attention. I think I don't want to call them the soft skills because I don't like that term at all, but I want to call it the human skills, because I
Oh, I
do
like
think
that. I know what you're talking about, soft skills. It doesn't mean
it
anything.
doesn't mean anything.
Mm-mm.
So, these signs that business owners have that, that they need to assess, do they still have the passion? Um, One of the things that I think is a critical one is this idea of change. The rate of change today is so rapid. I mean, I was at an AI conference recently, and it was interesting because one of the foremost experts in AI, Jonathan Mast, was conducting this. And he said, anyone who tells you that they know that they understand it all is lying. Because even the people who are experts are changing every single day. We're moving at warp speed. And for some business owners, I think it's easier to just stick with what they know. And if you do that, I think your business is not going to be successful in the long run. You are going to get left behind. And I truly do think that that's something we really need to look at. The rate of change. What do we need to do? And 20 years from now, it's said that the rate of change is going to be 4x for what it is now. So I think we have to think about, are you willing as a business owner to change? Because if not, maybe you need to change your status to retired. That's my thought.
And that makes sense to me. And honestly, I wrote this down while you were talking. I'm calling this in my head and out loud these days the whiplash era. We're constantly whipping our head and going, what the heck was that? what, what
Yeah.
are we doing? What do I need to know next? And you do need to stay on top as best you can of our changing reality in terms of technology. And like you, I'm a nerd in stilettos. I am a techie person.
I love that.
I am. I mean, I will be standing over the stove because I love to cook. It's very creative for me, and I cook the seat of my jeans, literally. And I can literally in my head while I'm stirring a roof or a gumbo or whatever I'm creating, I can craft a website in my pictures in my head, and by the time I get back here, I write it down,
Yeah.
which is a gift, and I get that, and I'm very grateful for it. But I have to understand AI, or as best as I can. I study it every day because it is changing every day. It's changing how we talk. It's changing how we communicate. It's definitely changing how we market.
Yes, absolutely. And so and by the way, this is not a criticism of people who don't embrace technology.
No, it's not for everybody.
It is truly not for everyone. And so I don't mean that to be critical. I'm just saying that all the signs point to the fact that if you are not willing to amp up your skills to have a certain level of techiness, let's call it, then it's going to be very difficult for you to run a business. And when people say, oh, well, I'm going to leave that to the IT people. No, business owners need to understand the strategy of what is happening in their business with technology, with AI, with new software tools, all of those things. And if you don't have that, want to take that, 30,000 foot view, you don't have to be down in the weeds, but you're not going to be able to lead your company in a way that is going to move that company forward.
Right. You have to understand enough and stay abreast of it to be able to hire people who can do the work that you need, not just turn it over to somebody and say, I used to get so irritated. Oh, I'm going to hire a VA. Are you going to train them? What?
Yeah,
Apparently not. You know, and then
apparently not.
yeah, and then they would get upset because the VA didn't read minds. So if you can't do the work, don't want to do the work, you should at least, at a minimum, be aware of what you need to ask for.
Yeah. One of the other signs that I have that you need to consider an exit is I call it your to-do list is getting longer. And what I mean by that is that you're procrastinating on the things that really need to be done at that executive level. I have seen a lot of people who do think they can farm some things out. And that's not to say that you can't. But when you're procrastinating about releasing new products or making changes within the structure of your business or having all kinds of, you know, interesting things happen, um, then, or just even something as simple as you keep hitting the snooze button. You aren't excited to go into your office. That's a sign that you need to be doing something different.
And and this is my favorite, one of your stay signs is you need the money. We all hear that. I'm big, guilty of it myself. It's like, "Ugh, I need to do this because, I need the money. I need to add to my savings, whatever the need is." So how do you help owners talk honestly about money and lifestyle so they're not walking around going, "I hate my life," so they
Mhm.
don't leave too early or stay too
Yeah.
long for the
Well,
wrong reasons?
and this is one of the things that I think, people don't like to talk about money. They truly don't, and I understand this. But what I will tell you is that when this is where working with a professional, and this is I'm gonna, just be perfectly honest about this one. I have always said I was really good at making money, but I really need people to help me figure out what to do with that money. That is not one of my skills. But what I will tell you is that business owners who don't have a financial advisor, and I'm not talking about a stockbroker, I'm talking about someone who is going to work with you, who will help you understand and see visually what your assets are. What I think happens a lot is, and one of my experts in the book, Tom Price of Hungerford Financial, he says, we look at people's assets, and a lot of people think that when they retire, they're not going to need as much money. And the reality is that a lot of business owners can't change their lifestyle. So you have to figure out, you're not going to cut back on all kinds of things. Most business owners, he says, have never made a personal budget. He said that, business owners are great at running their businesses, but maybe not so much their personal budget because they've always had cash coming in. So if maintaining a lifestyle is going to be important to you, and if your financial advisor can show you with certainty, I mean, 90% certainty that you're going to be able to live until you are 100 or whatever, they plug all these formulas in and can show you. And I mean, that's how I knew but for me, remaining working wasn't about the money. For me, it's about helping people and doing what I love. But if lifestyle is important, you may want to continue to work. And sometimes people are doing that because they're still caring for their parents, or they might still have children in the home. They've still got, if they had children late in life and they're still paying college bills. I mean, there's lots of reasons why business owners still need the money. So finding somebody that you trust who has the technology and the tools to show you what are the chances of reaching your goal and at what age can you retire, I think is really important. And if you don't have that, then you either have to get somebody to pay you a lot of money for your business, or you need to continue to work. And, one of the things that I've done in each of these chapters is I've got questions to ask yourself. So one of the questions on do you need the money is, are you disciplined about your finances? Because a lot of people are not that disciplined. And then if the business maybe is at a place where you can't sell it for what you need to, what do you have to do to increase that value of your business? And do you have a plan to do that? Because you can't just sit there and say, I'm going to grow the business. So I think it's very important that you ask those questions about money. And then on the flip side of that, if you have the finances and you've got it down and you know you can retire and you will be comfortable, what I have seen is the other little niggle that people run into is they're not ready to leave because they haven't defined their legacy. They haven't figured out what they're going to do with maybe the money that they've amassed and how it's going to be able to touch other people, make the world a better place, do something that will be their mark on the world. So if you haven't defined, if you haven't defined the legacy, that's another reason to stay working, because I have seen people who haven't defined their legacy, and I have got great stories in this book of people, one in particular that I can think of, who retired, did what lots of people do, bought a big boat, sailed, went
Yeah,
to Europe
I
for
read that.
6 months,
Yeah.
came back, sat on his couch and said, well, what the heck do I do now? And then went back to work. Why? Because he had not defined his legacy. So I think this is a really, we all want to be known for something. We all have that ability to make the mark on the world. Some in smaller ways, some in bigger ways, some in ways we leave marks. Sometimes we don't even know we have left. We've influenced people we don't even know we have touched. But if you haven't defined that legacy yet, and you're a person who, like me, loves to work, if you're going to sit home and, or as I love to say, sit on the beach and eat bonbons, I think you are going to be miserable.
Didn't we talk about that the last time you were here about your
We
sister and
did.
your brother-in-law?
Yeah, because they were in my previous book, and their story, which is revised, is in this book, which is very interesting. So I do think, so when it comes down to looking at these signs, I think if you understand who you are and if you are ready, then you can start to formulate a plan. For some people, that is going to be staying at their work, but remaining relevant. And I'm going to tell you that takes work. That some people think they're going to slide, and I know stories of business owners who have passed it on to their children and then come and sit in the office every day and read the newspaper. Not for me, thank you. Okay.
No.
That
If I
is
were the
not
children,
remaining relevant.
if I were the children, I'd call them an Uber and send them to Taco Bell or something. It's like, get out of here. You've done your time.
Absolutely.
Don't look over my shoulder.
So, but remaining relevant, and there are lots of ways to remain relevant. If you're, it's getting in and being engaged in what is happening within that business. It's what I call walk on the floor, getting out there and working with the people. And, for some people that I have interviewed, and there's two that I think are extremely inspirational. Dr. Roger Dean Duncan. He is the author of an international bestseller called Change Friendly Leadership, runs Duncan Worldwide, and Bob Fish, who runs Big B Coffee. These are two people who are the best of the best at remaining relevant. They are still engaged in their businesses. They are doing things. In fact, I don't think either one of them will ever retire, and I hope they don't, because they're doing great things in the world. And so I think that's something. And I think if you want to remain relevant and stay working, it also doesn't mean you have to work full time. You can bring in a management team who's going to handle a lot of the things, and you can remain at work still doing the work, but maybe not working the hours you did when you were at, its startup phase. So there are different ways of remaining relevant and remaining working.
I can't imagine ever retiring. I'm a workaholic.
Me too. And
Have been
I
all
wear
of my
that
life.
proudly.
Me too. I mean, I don't understand, and I hear this all the time, and it makes my teeth kind of clench. Work-life balance. There's no such thing in my mind. It's all you're working and you're living, and you're
Yeah.
one person. You can't split yourself like that.
I have never struggled with that. I'll be honest with you. And I've never kind of bought into that myth of, that you shouldn't, you should be working on the business all the time and not in the business. I think there's a balance there too. But I do think, why would we stop people from doing what they love? Why would we?
No.
I don't know either.
We all remember, we all have this, vague memory of, somebody down the street. This happened when my other house before I bought this one. And this guy, he got laid off. The whole company, closed down. And he went from being a very vibrant, very happy man to sitting literally, we lived on a lake. He would sit on the dock and just stare. He didn't live long after that. He didn't.
Well, and having purpose,
Right.
so important. I mean, I think I've told you before, my dad worked up until the age of 92 and he
Right.
died at 94. And I jokingly say, he gave us a wonderful role model for how to be happy in your work. My dad, CPA by background, but was a dry cleaner, went into business with his two brothers, right? And I will tell you that when he retired from the business, his next career was, he had become a life master in bridge. He was directing bridge games all over the place and having so much fun, being the director and having games and teaching people bridge. And then when my sister bought her business in North Carolina, he and my mom would go up and they would help in the business. And in fact, when my sister sold the business, he said, "Well, what am I going to do now?" And
I could hear it.
she literally sent him across the street to another business owner that she had worked with. And he went there several days a week and he was helping them. He worked for Hershey bars. That was his purpose.
Oh. And you just reminded me, my very dear friend, he passed away a year ago today, is Jim Tunney, who's known as the dean of NFL referees. He was
Yes.
95 when he passed, and he worked right up till the last year when he had some, pretty serious health issues. But when he passed, we were still talking while I was nagging to write his biography because he had so many stories that I've got a lot of them recorded. I really need to talk with his family and say, "Do you want these? Maybe you can do something with them."
Oh, I think that would be, and we need these role models. And as I said, it's not for everyone,
It's
but
not.
remaining relevant and staying at work is a choice. Now, retirement is also a choice. And I will tell you, my sister and her husband, they really planned their retirement very carefully and thoughtfully. They had a path. They are really my role model when it comes to people who have retired gracefully. They have a grandchild now. What I will tell you, to me, is an amazing story is they really did it right. The people who bought their business have there are still a number of her employees who are still working for that business. They recently moved into a bigger facility. They invited my sister and my brother-in-law back for a ribbon cutting
Oh,
and showed pictures of the business and how it started. There were pictures of my mom and my dad, my mother sewing and my dad in the laundry with the linens. And you know what? That to me, they closed the chapter and they have done it well. And so I think if that's what you choose and you're retired, you can do exactly what you want. Travel, family time, activities, volunteering. there are ways to stay vibrant and be retired, but you still have to have purpose. I think purpose is the key word.
It is, and it's hard sometimes. It was hard for me to define what my purpose was because I'm one of those people. I have a squirrel brain, no question about it. When you see somebody's head snap around, "Ooh, squirrel, that's me. That was me making that
But
swift move."
that's what makes you good at what you do, though.
I don't know. I keep thinking, "Oh, I've got ideas. I've got stuff to do." And then my brain just goes, "Go stick your head in the refrigerator," which I do, by the way, because I need a break. You know how you walk in, you open up your refrigerator, you don't know how you got there, you don't remember, you know, that that walk through the house, you're just like, "What am I doing here? What's going on?" I do it deliberately when I need to clear my brain. I will
Wow.
open up that double door, stick as much of my torso and my head in there, and I only come back out when, I've calmed down, my brain has calmed down a little bit, and the doors start yelling at me. "Oh, I gotta go now." And back I go. But, it's so hard when you have a squirrel brain to say, "I've got to find my path." I've got to do 1 or 2 or 3 things really well and quit ripping myself from this area to this one, tripping over here. It's annoying.
So here's the thing. What you just said, though, is kind of my third pillar for people who maybe need to exit what they're doing. You don't. You're going to continue doing. But if you
Oh,
need to
yeah.
exit what you're doing, but you are not done yet, you can reinvent yourself. I mean, obviously, we've seen lots of people who are serial entrepreneurs. Um, I always said from day one, when I was at CK and Co, I loved what I was doing. And I would often say to people, when I quit having fun, I'm going to go do something else because retirement to me just doesn't seem that interesting. Now, part of that statement is still true. Retirement doesn't seem fun to me. But what I've done is, and I started it while I was working in the business. So this is, I think, the momentum. If you're going to reinvent yourself, you need to have that plan while you are still working. That's why I started writing books. It's why I work with the National Small Business Association. It's why I continue to do what I'm doing is I was building that foundation for when I left my media production business so that I had a plan long before I sold it. And this is why sometimes when I talk with business owners, I say to them, because if you just stop cold, you can be that guy sitting at the pier that you were talking about, looking out there and becoming a shell of themselves. So thinking about what can you do and putting that in place, sometimes that's consulting for the business that you have sold. I chose not to do that. I chose to make a clean break and move on. I'm still, advising as needed if they need me. But I think if you want to work into what would be your retirement years, think about what's the new adventure. What is it? And one of the things that I recommend to people is they call it today a side hustle. It's all over. Everybody loves the side hustle.
Right. This is a gig economy.
It's we used to call that freelancing or
Right.
temporary work, but now
Right.
it's a side hustle.
Yep.
But I mean, if you think about it, okay, my father was a business owner. He loved bridge. His side hustle was directing bridge games. It was great pin money, kept his mind active. He had other hobbies, woodworking, things. He loved doing things, right? So is there something that you love that has been a passion of yours that maybe has been a hobby or just an interest? And today it's easier than ever to set up e-commerce sites. I know people who are doing amazing things with wood crafting or jewelry making or art or consulting I mean, the bottom line is this is a way to stay engaged. you can make some extra cash. Maybe you make a big haul. Maybe your side hustle becomes bigger than your business was. Um, but I think thinking carefully about what will you do, and for people who do not have interests, it's really difficult to move into that retirement phase when you haven't got a plan.
And these days, it's so easy, like you just mentioned, all the tools and the apps and the platforms. It's a low barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to build a business. You don't have to go get a loan.
Yeah.
You just start, go do it.
And you know what's the worst that can happen?
It
It
shuts
doesn't.
down. It
Yeah,
doesn't work.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Right.
You know, this is what entrepreneurs are known for. When we fail, we pick ourselves up and we move on. We try something
Oh,
else.
we do. We have cast iron stomachs. We have to,
Yeah.
because you're going to fail daily,
No.
daily, multiple times sometimes. Might be big. It might be, oh crap, what was that? I've had those days. But then you sit back and you think about it and you go, you know what? Maybe that wasn't the right choice. Let me either fix it or move on. But you have to have these discussions with yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I do think, I mean, there's actually research about what happens when people are not involved and having purpose. I mean, in fact, I mean, there are health implications for this. And we in the past have, there's depression, people have physical health problems. And I think some of that is if you get joy from your work and identity from your work, and then you sell and you don't have a plan, all of a sudden you're isolated.
You're
You're
lost.
lonely. Yeah.
Yeah, you're lost. I've seen that happen too. Although these days, and I'd say these days, the last 5 or 10 years, I've noticed that people are, entering the gig economy or the side hustle.
Mhm.
Because as you build, as you work, as you evolve, you've got all kinds of things that you didn't use. Soft skills, let's go ahead and use that term. You've
Yeah.
got all kinds of human skills that you didn't pay much attention to, but now you're like, huh, I have stuff to share.
Well, and if you don't want to do the side hustle, I know volunteering for some people that's a dirty word, and for other people it's a wonderful word. But I have seen a lot of business owners become volunteers for organizations. And maybe in the past, what they did is they wrote them checks because they didn't have the time, right?
Right.
But they wrote checks, but they've never been able to really get involved in it. I'll tell you one of the things that I did before I left the business. I serve on a number of boards. I serve on a couple of foundation boards, but I wanted to do something for the younger business owners coming up, because I think passing on that knowledge is really important. And many, many years ago, I served on the board of Junior Achievement. I have been a supporter of theirs, but I haven't been able to really spend the time. So I reached out and asked about volunteering, and I was really honored that they invited me to join the board again. And so I'm having fun because now I've also got and you can't spread yourself too thin, but I've got something where I can impact young business owners coming up. And I think it's so important. You know, that knowledge, we don't want to lose knowledge. Now, obviously, the world is going to be very different for them, but many of the principles of business are timeless. And so if you can find, and maybe the volunteering doesn't have to do with business. Maybe you love to play golf and you want to go volunteer and be at a PGA event. They have tons of volunteers. Or maybe, you volunteer at a community event, doing something that gets you out and gets you involved. Those are the sorts of things that are also ways to kind of reinvent yourself in a different role.
They are. My sister is getting ready to retire, and I asked her, so what are you going to do? Because she's like me. Just she goes all the time. She said, I am going to volunteer at an animal shelter. And I went, really? And she is. She's dead set about it.
Mhm. Yeah. And I have a friend who also has a passion for animals, and that's one of her side things. But even other things that are creative. I know one gentleman who retired and is learning to play the guitar. And
Oh,
he's always wanted to play the guitar.
now he's
Well,
got time.
now he's got time. So I think, you cannot think of, I don't like to call it retirement. I like to call it transitioning. And you have options in your transition, you know? And what works for one person does not work for another. I jokingly, my sister knows I love to travel for speaking and doing things and classes, and she always likes to know where I am. So I made a Word doc, and I listed all of the places I'm going to be January through this next November. And she sent me back a 2-word email that said, "Retired, huh?" with a question mark. And I said, "I told you I'm not retired.
No,
I
that's a
just
bad word.
reinvented myself."
Right. And I'm looking at your book again. Oh, we are going to run out of time, but you're going to come back after the book is published.
I
You
do.
describe this as an inquiry-based guidance, which I love, and you've got questions and worksheets. How do you recommend a listener actually use those questions and worksheets over months or years? I know you suggest dating their answers and revisiting them.
Yeah. So, what I think is important is that people understand, excuse me, over time, things change. So, what I like to say is set up a schedule. Semi-annually, annually, monthly, it's going to be different for every person. Pick one of the signs that you were having trouble with. Go back and look at those questions. And I journal. I think it's important because when you go back and you look at that, you go, "Oh, I feel more of that," or "I don't feel that way anymore." So having a journal, using the questions, and then I've developed 2 worksheets. And the worksheets, I kind of like them because you can photocopy them out of the book and you can keep them, and it's like a 1 to 10 scale, so it's real easy. You don't need to spend a lot of time, but for example, um, you need the money. Well, what's your level of comfort? Are you comfortable? Are you moderately comfortable? Are you not comfortable? Are you very uncomfortable? Okay, give it a score. Come back, 2, 3 months later. Well, are you better or are you worse? How do you feel? So these worksheets of should you stay or should you go, and there's 2 worksheets. If you keep track of it and score it, the more points you have. Now, if they're equal on both sides, well, maybe you got some planning to do. But if you start to see that number on going is much higher, well, then I think you need to really start to look at, do you have a plan in place for exiting?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's scary because so many of us don't. I don't. And I know I don't. And I think you've already yelled at me about this. So we'll just consider that done. But it's, I don't want to retire. Here's my attitude. I'm going to probably die in my sleep at 100 years old planning world domination.
Mhm.
I'm
Okay.
not going anywhere.
All right. So here's, I'm going to just ask you a quick question. Where is your passion? 1 to 3, over the moon. 4 to 6, love what I do. 7 to 9, moderately excited. Or 10, not feeling it.
Love what I do.
Yeah. So you're at a 4 to 6, which tells you that you need to stay doing what you do. Now, that doesn't mean you can't plan for, what if you have a health emergency?
All
What
right.
if something happens? Those are the sorts of plans. So maybe building some support in, maybe taking on an apprentice or someone to help you should you need to do. I mean, there are things that we can do so that we have that continuity. Because, even if you think about people like, let's see, Dr. Spock. Dr. Spock had a team of researchers, and when Dr. Spock, left this world, well, there were a team of researchers to carry on his work and his research.
Right. Right.
Now, it is a little bit different, obviously, with what we do because we're in service-based businesses, but there are still things that I think we can do.
I
So,
know what I want to do. I'm in the middle of almost to the end of writing a book for Ben Gay the Third. The closers. He was the
yeah,
last. Ben Gay. He was the last
yeah, I've read the
mentee.
books.
Yeah, the closers 1 and 2. I'm writing closers 4.
Oh, see, this is amazing.
I know. And now that I've, got over my what? Because he just flat told me, you're going to write number 4. And I said, okay. I didn't argue. And it terrified me. Although I have to say, I have always dreamt of writing a book. I've written them in my sleep, literally. I want to do more writing.
Yeah. There's something people either love to write or they hate to write. I love to write.
Me too.
And I love to read. Although I do love video too. I mean, it's my passion. It truly is. But I think that's an amazing thing. See, you are starting to define a legacy that is beyond what your legacy is with your podcast.
And
You're
it's so
already
interesting that
reinventing yourself.
right. And it's so interesting that you brought up legacy and went deep into it. And I'm so glad you did because Ben and I, we have a Wednesday podcast called The Closers, the Inner Circle podcast. And we talked a lot about legacy just this last week. I have to be honest with you. It's not something I've given a lot of, real thought to, but I've got you and Ben Gates saying, Denise, what is your legacy? What are you going to do with it? I think it's time for me to sit down with myself.
Well, and I think making that time in that space is just, once you do it, everything becomes so crystal clear. And I have had no regrets at all in selling the business and moving to the next phase of my life. And I'm really proud of that because I worked at it. It didn't just happen. And that's why I do want to, I want to share that with other people because people, the value that individuals bring, everyone's unique. We all bring something different to the table. And so being able to share that, that's a gift. That's a gift to me if I can share it with other people. And I hope it's a gift to them.
Oh, it is. But I have one last question before I very reluctantly let you go, but I'm glad you're coming back. For the business owner listening to us right now who might suspect that they're at a crossroads, what are 3 concrete actions that you want them to take in the next 90 days?
Oh, that's a really good one. Okay, 3 concrete actions. I think the first one is if they have if they have an exit plan in place, I want them to pull it out. I want them to review it because exit plans change. If they do not have an exit plan, I want them to sit down and I want them to write down 3 reasons why they think they should stay and 3 reasons why they think they should go, right? And document that. And the third thing that I want them to do is I want them to start to assemble a team of people. They may already have a team that is working with their business, but it may not be the right team to help them think through this next phase of their life. You need people who are going to be part of that business and that emotional journey and help you think through that. So those are 3 things. And then obviously buy my book when it comes out.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and you know what? And reach out to me. I am always happy to talk with people. Best way is LinkedIn. Look me up, connect with me, tell me you heard me on Denise's podcast. And I would love to chat with people. But those are 3 concrete things. Don't wait another day. Don't leave it to fate because you may end up being unhappy in a job you don't love or a business you don't love. And there may be something better waiting for you, or you may find out you are perfectly happy and content where you are.
Go deep. You have to go deep within whatever it is that you're thinking, doing, worried about, looking forward to it, you have to pay attention.
Absolutely.
Listen, CK, as we wrap up this episode, I would love to share with listeners where they can connect with you and your work. And is there a final thought or a key takeaway that you'd like to leave them with about navigating the stay or go crossroads?
Sure. Well, first of all, the best way to connect with me, honestly, is on LinkedIn, but also Cynthia, Kay, biz.com. You can reach me there. Those are the two best places to reach out for me. I guess one final piece of advice that I would have is that a plan is just a plan. It's a guide. And having one means that you've kind of if you don't have one, you put yourself at risk. But know that the plan can change over time. And even if you think you're never going to exit, none of us is going to live forever. So a plan's
I
a
know.
necessity.
That's annoying.
So pay attention to the signs and choose wisely.
And now that you said that, what is the very first question you hope that our audience will sit with after this episode, even before they can get the book in their hands?
I think the very first question is to sit down and ask themselves, because I think this is the big one, am I as passionate today about my business as I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, wherever you are at your phase? Because passion is what fuels the entrepreneur.
Can you hear me? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay, I hope I didn't cough on you.
No. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't talk over your ending.
Oh, go talk. It doesn't bother me. It's coming out in January 26th, right?
I think it's going to be out January 12th. That's the date we're
Oh,
targeting. I should
right.
know more today. So, can I will, as soon as I've got one, I'm going to send it to you. But in the meantime, I will also send you the cover for the book. And then
Yeah, I
what
will
I
be talking about it a lot. Once it comes out, I will be happy to share it.
Okay, and then I also I would like to send you something because and it okay, it may seem kind of silly, but but I got to make sure I thought I had a physical address for you, and I'm going to have to go look. But if you wouldn't mind emailing me, because I would like to send you, at our church, we make batches of Greek spices that are,
Oh,
that are to die for, Denise. I mean, to
oh,
die for. And
I can already smell them.
and when you talked about cooking, I thought, I have got to send you, and you don't need to use a lot of it. It will last you a year, but I want to send it to you as a thank you because I think you will love it. So
I
if you
will. I already do. And I love to cook. I've been cooking. Gosh, I wasn't old enough to see over the counter.
really,
Yep. I was in
well,
the kitchen with my grandma and my mom, and we cooked. Now,
so
my
I may,
sister, God bless her, uses her sink to water plants. That's it.
oh, really?
She does not cook.
Oh, well, all right. So now I may have lost because I've switched systems because I tried to keep as much as I could. But can you send me your physical address?
I'll be happy to. I'm honored.
All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I want to send it to you because I'm looking through what I have and I'm not seeing it. So it may be in my old UPS system as opposed to my new UPS system or USPS system, but send it to me and I'm going to send you something. And then this is going live this afternoon.
Yes, it is.
All right. Can you send me the link as soon as you've got it? Because I am going to blast it out to my audience as well.
Oh, absolutely. I do this, I have a system that works very well, thank goodness, because I do 3 of these a week. But I will get it out there. I will send you several links, Spotify, Apple, all of those, along with the show graphic.
Okay.
And then we'll start talking about that book. I can't wait to I've read it, but there's something about reading a PDF or
I like
Braille.
having
I
a
want the book.
physical.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Believe me, I am right there with you.
Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much. And be sure to get in touch with CK at her website or on LinkedIn, and you will hear more about that book in the next 20, 30 days. CK, thank you. It has been lovely chatting with you, and I can't wait to have you back again.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.